Hi, I'm BJ, and this is the Arcane Alienist Podcast.
Hey, everybody. So we're back with a little more dungeon crawling with Borg, with my character Eldar Rottentoe and his vicious, ugly little dog So last time we had got the first room of the dungeon. Again, I'm playing with the solitary defilement rules for solo Borg play. And let's see what happens here. So we had entered the first room of the dungeon. It turned out to be one of the special rooms, a triangle-shaped room. There was a drunken thief in there. Managed to use a little bit of my omen, my luck, to save myself from being killed. Although I think I would have survived based on my roll when I dropped to 0 hit points, but it probably wouldn't have gone much better after that. So we are back, and we're going to try. There were 3 doors leading from this room, each on the corner of kind of the triangle, and the door at the kind of the top of the triangle going north on the map. And again, these are all generated, so I don't know what the rest of the map looks like. I'm discovering this just as you are, as we procedurally generate this. Anyway, I decided that the one of the doors was described as having an arrow in it, and I put it at the door across from the entry passage to the dungeon here, which is the Rancid maze of Krudnik. I think probably there was a toppled statue at the entry of a forgotten prophet. So I said, this is beloved prophet Krudnik. On the pedestal that statue is on. This must be the prophet's tomb that I'm in right now. In fact, we'll go ahead and say that having a moment to decide where I'm going to before I take off. Looking around, that's what is indicated on the tomb here. Is that this is the tomb of Krudnik, and she was some sort of prophet in ancient times past. So to determine what the next room is, we'll take a dungeon crawl move. So in each room, you roll versus the dungeon DR, 2d20 plus the number of special rooms discovered. In this case, we've discovered 1 special room. On a strong hit, you enter the next special room. Remember, there are 4 special rooms in each dungeon. I've automatically found the first one off the bat. On a weak hit, you enter a generic room. Use the room descriptor oracles on page 13 to reveal the room type, its contents, and its exits. And I'm also pulling in something from Dark Fort, the original prototype from Borg. There's a table in there to give me a sense of the shape of the room, because solitary defilement doesn't do that. And on a fail, some calamity hits before I exit the room I'm already in. So it says, imminent danger becomes more imminent, the door's locked. Or if you're feeling unimaginative, just roll for a common encounter. There are random encounters in the dungeon. Sorry, as I'm rereading that, it actually says encounter some enemy trap or calamity as you leave your current location. So I guess it will be in the next room. The next room will be a generic room, but it's one that includes some sort of calamity or mishap. Okay, so let's see what happens. So the dungeon DR is 6. I'm going to roll 2d20. I've discovered 1 room, special room, so I'll add a +1 to the results. And what do I get? I get a 14 and a 15, which the +1 makes that a 15 and a 16. That is another strong hit, which means I have found another special room. So you're seeing here where the DR of the dungeon, as it goes up, will protract how long it takes to get through, and of course drain your resources and make it much more dangerous in the terms of random encounters and traps and mishaps, versus if you can just get through your 4 special rooms quickly, you're more likely to survive and get out. So here we go. The special rooms that are left are numbers 1, 2, and 4. I could roll a D4 and just re-roll a 3. But since there's 3 rooms, I will just roll a D6. On a 1 to 2, it's room 2. On a roll of 2 to 3, it's 3 to 4, we'll go with room 2. And 5 to 6, we'll go with room 4. So what have I got here? I roll a 3, so this is going to be room number 2. Piles of feathers, bells, and marbles on the floor. So moving over to my tables to further flesh out the room, from dark fork, I'm going to roll a 2d6 to get the shape of the room. And I get 6 and a 2 for 8, and that room shape is square. And back to solitary defilement, I roll a d20 for some adjective to describe the room. I get a 20, unnatural or uncanny. Then I roll a d12 for the type of room. And I roll a 2. This is a stream, pool, or chasm of some kind. I roll a d4 to determine the number of exits. And the number changes depending on the number of special rooms it's already uncovered. So with one already uncovered, it goes 1, 2, 1 is 1 door, 2 is 2 doors, 3 is 2 doors, 4 indicates no doors, which means I suppose I would have to go back out and retrace my steps. And I roll a 1, which means there's only 1 exit. I've got, assuming there's not an exit on the same wall I just came in, it'll be to the left, to the right, or straight ahead. So 1 to 2 left, 3 to 4 right, 5 to 6 straight ahead, 1. So this is a door to the left. Let me mark that on the map here. So the only exit. And finally, what is in the room other than what's already been described? Roll a 12-sided die with a result of 6, and that is a common encounter. Common encounter for this thing, I will roll a d6, and we'll see what the encounter is. Came up 6, and that says a useful item. So there's an oracle for that. So there's no creature in here. There is a potentially useful item. Let's see what it is. So flip back over here, d6, 3. A piece of equipment from the core Borg book. So there's a list of equipment, but this is one of the few lists in the core book where there's no set amount of die to roll to determine what's there. There are 45 items on the list. That's an odd number that makes it a little difficult to roll with a simple die mechanic. However, if I just say backpack is probably the least likely thing, just it's the first thing on the list. It's also something people have. Let's see if there's anything else that's very unlikely, though, before I just eliminate backpack, because wagons and carts are also things you can have. Like when you're rolling your starting equipment, you can roll that in place of a backpack. No, I don't see that. So we're gonna let's see what the. Let me do some thinking here. Okay, this is kind of convoluted, but let's just lean into the spirit of things. So I'm going to break out my funky DCC dice. I've got a D3 and a D5. There are 45 items on this list. So I'm going to roll the D3 and the D5 to get a number between 1 and 15. And then I'm going to roll the D3 again to see if it's actually 1 to 15, 16 to 30, or 17 to 45. I'm 31 to 45. All right, so I get a 3 on my D5 and a 1. So it is a value of 3. Okay, so now I'm going to roll to see whether that's the third item on the first 15 on the list, the middle 15 on the list, or the last 15 on the list. And it is the last 15 on the list. 6, 5, 4, 3. That's going to be a vial of red poison with 3 doses. So I can't recall. I put it in the in-character narration, but I can't remember if I actually specified it on the when I was just doing the play-by-play like this. The thief that I took out last time did have a poisoned knife, and so I surmised that not only would I have his knife, but he would have a vial of this red poison, which I just rolled on the thing with 2 doses in it because one had already been applied to the blade of his knife. So here in this room, I can find this another vial of this red poison. Okay, so how do we put it all together other than the room contents? Here's what we'll say. So this is a square room. I come in on the south wall. There is an exit on the western wall. However, almost diagonally cutting across this room is an unnatural or uncanny sort of chasm. We've got these fleshy roots emanating these kind of creepy whispers that are growing from somewhere in the heart of the labyrinth here. And so I'm going to say that this one has got a chasm. If you peer down in it, it's got one of these tendrils, but it is much larger than the other ones. So it's just a little creepy. This is really, really, really disturbing to look at that. Maybe the whispering is a little more there. The floor obviously is some sort of trap. It's covered in marbles, which probably are designed maybe there to kind of get you to trip and fall into the chasm, which I think, I don't know what that does. We may have to randomly determine that later, but I think it can't be a good thing. And the feathers and the bells, if little, we'll say they're like little maybe jingle bells, there to make noise if you move too quickly or disturb them. And then these feathers laying everywhere maybe obscure the bells and the marbles that are meant to trip you up and alert everybody to your presence. So to get out that other door, I'm going to have to cross this room, including get across that chasm, hopefully without drawing attention to myself. So let's see, how would we do this using solitary defilement? I have nothing in my possessions that would allow me to like lay something like across the chasm. I'm going to just say, consistent with sort of dungeon crawling danger and obstacles, it's too big to just step over, and probably not even a standing. You want to get kind of a run and leap over it, or maybe a standing long jump if you were really strong. But that would be pretty tough. I would say that would probably up the DR. So decide on the DR of but by default the DR of things is 12. But you could go up to a 14 or a 16 if something is assess the DR of the action. 6 is simple, 12 is normal, 18 is almost impossible. So it's not normal, but it's not almost impossible. It's just really difficult. So splitting the difference between a 12 and an 18, you're probably looking at a 15 maybe. And that would just be to kind of walk up and stand and jump. But even to do that, you'd have to be very careful and very slow. Thinking of sort of trying to clear a path, I could do that, but that would probably be, how do I do that without ringing these bells? Very carefully. And, I think there's time of the essence. I know I'm not alone down here. There's this is a lair for a thieves guild, so I don't want to spend too much time wasting here. So what we'll do is we will say that Eldar is, well, first, does he notice the floor? I mean, does it just look like feathers to him, or does he suspect? Does it just seem like something is off? This is not just feathers on the floor. We'll do a presence check. I have a +1 on presence, 2d20, and I got 16 on both rolls for 17 on both rolls. So that is a strong success. So yeah, it's pretty obvious to him that it's not just feathers. So carefully poking around, he can see that, okay, if I just walk out here, I'm going to slip on these marbles and make some noise with all these bells. So I got to clear a path for myself. Can I clear enough of a path? And be quiet enough about it that nothing happens. Let's see how it's silent. So we'll do this as an agility. I don't have any bonus to this, but we're going to call that a normal. That seems like an easy enough task. That does seem like an easy enough task to do now that you're kind of aware of it. So it's a slow task. So rather than the 12, I'm going to just give this a 10. Ooh, and I got a 2 and a 5. So despite taking his time and being careful and it being a fairly easy task, actually that should have been a simple task. That still would have been a failure though, wouldn't it? Because that would have been a 6. All right, so I'm going to say that's going to provoke an encounter in the dungeon because I've made some noise while I'm trying to do this. So what kind of encounter do I have? I'll roll a d6 on our encounter table, and that's a 4. 4 for a common encounter is a goblin. So maybe one of these, there's goblins allied with this thieves guild. So let's look at the stats for a goblin. So the goblin, okay, which door does the goblin appear in though? Does he appear behind me? But that would be one of the guards from the outside, I think most likely. Or does he appear from the door I haven't made it to yet? I'm going to say 1 to 3, it is the door I haven't made it to yet, and 4 to 6, it's coming from behind. And I roll a 1. So this is a new goblin who comes in. He's on the other side of the chasm. So he can't come at me with his knife, but he probably, they have short bows as well. So, and they are quick. Attacks, defense, or DR 14. Well, fortunately, I'm on this cabinet over here on this chasm. So what do? We got to roll initiative. 1 to 3, the goblins go first. The enemy goes first. 4 to 6, the player character goes first. I roll a 3. The goblin is going to get to go first, which means he's probably going to shoot at me with an arrow. I have to defend against that. And my defense is agility. Normally would be a D12, but it is a D14 because it's a DR 14 because this is a goblin. Ooh, I'm not feeling good about this. And I got a 9. So what damage does a bow do? I really need more hit points, don't I? There was some advice about perhaps starting out with 1 improvement on this just to give yourself a little bit of a chance. I did not do that. Maybe I should have. But we'll see. D4 damage. So let's hope he rolls poorly. He rolls a 3. I have 1 omen left. I think I'm going to, rather than spend the omen, I am going to just accept the hit because you can restore D4 hit points after a fight just by catching your breath, having a drink, you get D4 back. So maybe we're not in such bad shape if I can take this goblin out before he can take me out. Okay, my only ranged attack is my powers, the Daemon of Capillaries. So we're going to have to do another use of this spell again, which is bad because if it doesn't work, if it doesn't work, then I'm going to lose 2 hit points, which means I die. No guts, no glory. Let's see what happens here. So I'll roll my presence test. That's a +1 on the presence. 19 plus 1 for a 20. It's not a crit, but hey, I'll take it. So how that particular power works is the target begins to choke on its own blood for a number of rounds, but we've got to D6 rounds. Last time I rolled a 1, which was not all that helpful. This time I rolled a 2, so he is going to take this damage for 2 rounds, 1d4 hit points per round. So he immediately begins to choke, and he takes 2 hit points. And the goblin has 7 hit points. Let's see if an omen can be used. I maybe need to use the omen to see. Lower 1 DR test by 4, neutralize a crit or a fumble, lower the damage dealt to you by d6, reroll a dice, yours or someone else's, deal maximum damage with an attack. Well, I did 2. And I'm going to back up into the doorway behind me to give myself a little bit of cover. So I'm going to say that will increase his difficulty of hitting me, or will improve my defense, we'll say. And a shield, I think normally, what's the effect of a shield? We'll just call it equivalent to that. Oh, a shield reduces... Yeah, armor is damage reduction, and I don't have any armor. So, yeah, we'll just say that improves makes it harder for him to hit me. So instead of a DR 12 agility, I'll say it's a DR 14. Or I'm sorry, that would mean it's a DR 10 for me to pass. And I got an 11. So the goblin shoots another arrow at me and he misses. And he's going to take another D4 of choking on his blood. And I rolled a 3. So he's taken 5 points. He's got 2 left, but that is the end of the spell. Let's see if he can hit me again. You know what? We probably should have. I think we're supposed to roll initiative every round. Oh, well, I didn't, so we'll just stick with it. So he's going to shoot at me again. I'll have to remember that for next time. So I've got to beat a 10. I got a 15. Very good. And I guess I will throw my knife at him that I confiscated from the... that's good. That's a presence test. So that's... I get a +1 to this. He's at a 14 to hit. I rolled 8 + 1 is 9, so now I'm missing my knife. And he's on the other side of this thing. You know, he's been zapped with a spell. He's taken over half his hit points and damage. Let's see what his morale does. The goblin's morale is 7. Oh, wait a minute. Was I looking at his stats wrong? Hit points 6, morale 7. He's got 1 hit point left. So I roll for morale and I roll an 11. If you roll over the creature's morale, I did roll over the creature's morale. He either flees or surrenders. 1 to 3, he flees. 4 to 6, he surrenders. And I rolled. Yeah, it says to roll. The enemy only has a third of their hit points left, so we're good. I rolled a 1, which means he's going to just duck down that door and flee. So now I've got to be careful because I know there's a goblin in there who is aware of me. He's got 1 hit point. I'm going to catch my breath, take a drink of water, and regain some HP here. D4 HP, and I roll a 3. Okay, good. That puts me back up to full HP. And now I've still got to run and jump over this chasm. That is going to be a strength test, which I don't get a bonus on. That's bad. Okay, I passed it. I got an 11. Oh, but I should have got a 12, huh? Oh, wait a minute. This is one of those ones where you got to roll 2d20. Okay, so that's a failure. Both times around. So I fall into the pit with this fleshy, gross thing. Well, what happens? Let's see. All right, we're going to have to jump ahead a little bit. There's a monster presumably in the fourth and final special room, which is the source of these tendril, trunk, whatever these things are. Let's determine what that is, and then from there we can extrapolate what happens if you fall into a chasm with one of its limbs. All right, the monster approaches. This is a monster generator that comes from the Phylactery supplement, which is also recommended with to use in solitary defilement here. So first of all, on table A, you roll a d12, and that is a 1. So we roll, there's 3 columns. You roll a d12 in each column. You got to track the results. Column 1, or table A, sorry, I get a result of 1. So the monster approaches dragging 1 limb. Table B, you roll another d12. So it's with whatever the result of this is, I get an 11, protruding bones. And then table C, its is in it, possessive its, and I get a sorry, I dropped my die. 3, radiating a dizzying magnetism. Okay, so whatever is at the core of this labyrinth, it maybe it's trapped there. It has some ability to drag 1 limb around, so maybe it's stuck in the room, but it can move around the room. It's dragging 1 limb with protruding bones. Maybe that's what it can use as an attack. Maybe it's another one of these limbs like this, but the bones are that we've seen in the ceilings. But the bones are protruding, so it can be used like a weapon. And it radiates a dizzying magnetism, so maybe some sort of fascination that you're going to have to resist to just not stop and let it pummel you to death. So the greatest of the dice roll, the greatest result is morale, 11, which means it's going to be really hard on a 2d12 to beat its morale and cause it to surrender, or I guess it can't flee if it's trapped. The lowest result is its damage. There's a table. If you look over here, the lowest result was a 1. So on a 1 to 3, the damage is a d4. Roll the damage die twice, or roll the damage die, doubling the result to generate its hit points. I roll a 2, so it has 4 hit points. Its armor, whichever table of the first 3 tables had the highest result, that was table number 2, where I got an 11, or table B. Table B, then it has what would be the equivalent of light armor, D2 damage reduction minus D2 armor. So 4 hit points, minus D2 armor. Morale is great. That's not doesn't sound like too bad of a fight. However, there's 2 other things I have to roll here. On a 20-sided die, more than anything, it wants to, and I get 11. Defend another 11. Defend its territory. It has a terrible trait. Here's the kicker. D20, and that says number 7. It exists partly in an anti-arcane dimension in the vicinity. Powers do not work. So when I get in this room, my powers are not going to work. I don't know if how likely it is whenever the time comes if Eldar will know that, but he may have to find out the hard way. Okay, that being said, we're still at least a little bit away from encountering this creature, but its large tendril is down in this chasm. So we'd say that this sort of dizzying effect is maybe caused by this whispering, and with these little tendrils, it's maybe just kind of noticeable and a little kind of, again, a little creepy. Once you get in the room, it has this larger effect. So the thing is, what's going to happen? Well, it's a double failure. So going back to solitary definement, I mean, it means, it's a failure. It's not a weak success, or it's not a strong hit or a weak hit. It is an actual fail. And so generally when you fail at one of these general kind of things that happens, it's supposed to introduce a complication. It doesn't have to be super bad. It can just be a weak hit means you succeed, but not really well. So yeah, things couldn't have gone worse. Something particularly bad happens, or perhaps some sort of plot twist occurs. I'm going to say there's something else down in this pit. I didn't roll a reaction for the goblin, which was my bad. Let's roll another encounter and see what might be down here. 5. What is that? That is a mongrel. So there is another mangy dog down here. So let's roll a reaction for the mongrel. 7. It is indifferent to me. So maybe it is down here and it is whimpering and whining because its ears are more sensitive. These whisperings that are just kind of annoying or mildly distracting to me are really, really hurting its ears. It is indifferent to me. I guess, I could try to approach it calmly so that it doesn't attack me, help it out. And then the question is, if I help it out, I'm assuming these are sort of kept as guard dogs by the thieves. It will return to its, its job as a guard dog, its disposition as a guard dog, or will it be my friend, or will it ignore me? So here's what I am going to do. Let's make a presence test and see if I can shift that indifference to friendly. And I get a +1 on my presence, and I get a 12, or 11 plus 1 is 12, and a 15 plus 1 is 16. So I have shifted the dogs by being very calm and gentle as I approach. The dog is shifted to sort of a friendly demeanor, and maybe I can lift it up as I try to crawl out of this chasm. So complication could have been bad, if the dog had rolled worse on the reaction, or if I had failed maybe I unwisely chose not to ignore the dog and just angered it more. So there you go. So I pushed this mongrel up out of this chasm, and then I crawl out myself. So the reason being, the chasm was there was no way to just step over the chasm, but this gross thing down in the bottom made you not want to just climb down there in there with it. But I couldn't think of anything worse. I guess fall damage maybe would have been appropriate, but let's see what happens next. So I'm able to get up out of the thing. Probably down here, let's say, is where I also noticed this other vial of poison that someone must have dropped, and I put that in my pocket and crawl out. I'm assuming that my little vicious dog he couldn't have jumped across. If I probably was holding on to him when I tried to jump, maybe tucked under one arm, like a football player tried to do a leap over the goal line. It didn't work. I open the door, peer into the next chamber. It's a more or less square-shaped room. There's another door on the wall to the left, but a wide chasm has cut a diagonal path across the room and the floor. It would be impossible to just step across. It's too wide. I'll have to jump over, and I'll have to carry with me. There's no way it could make a jump on its own. But the chasm isn't the strangest part of this room. The floor's covered in feathers, like someone has plucked several score geese. Closer look, and I see that the feathers aren't really resting solidly on the floor. So I pick one up, and I see a handful of small spherical objects underneath it. Marbles, perhaps meant to make someone trip and fall into the chasm. This is not the most intelligently designed trap. Oh well. I look down at who cocks his head and tells me he has no idea what to do. I suppose the best thing is to just clear a path that would allow me to get a running start to leap over the chasm. So I set to work, and I'm perhaps only a foot from the door when a clear metallic tone rings out. Was that a bell? Too late, I realize that this apparently is a cleverly designed trap, or maybe I'm not as bright as I thought I was. Mixed in with these marbles are small jingling bells, like those that hang off the tassels of a fool's hat. Basquiat's two-headed damnation. Who's the fool now? At first, it seems like I've gone unnoticed, but after a few seconds, a goblin with a short bow emerges from the door on the other side of the chasm and immediately pulls an arrow from its quiver. I don't think I'll talk my way out of this one. As the goblin knocks the arrow, I pull my scroll again and recite the esoteric words to unleash the daemon of capillaries. The goblin begins to cough, but manages to let loose and graze me with an arrow. Blood is now spilling down from its mouth. Blood is also protruding from the wound on my arm. It knocks and looses another arrow, but it misses as I back into the doorway for cover. The coughing fit passes, and the spell dissipates. Desperately, I hurl the knife that I took from the dead thief in the previous room, but it falls short. The goblin's alive, but it looks to be in pretty bad shape, and it seems like the fight has gone out of it. It also falls back into its doorway and closes the door behind it. I wait a moment, and it doesn't return. I check the wound on my arm and take a few sips of water, one tiny sip of that liquor. Slowly and carefully, I clear a path to the chasm. I toss my torch across to the other side, tuck up under one arm. The dog thing asks something about my ability to fly, or the lack thereof. With a few bounding steps, I leap up over the chasm, but it's not enough. We land on a clammy, fleshy surface a few feet down. The whispering I've heard since entering this maze is a lot louder down here. Make a sickening realization just before my eyes adjust to the dimmer light. A much larger version of the root-like limbs I've seen on the ceiling lies along the length of the chasm. It appears to have dug through the earth like a root, burst through the back wall, and now extends beyond the confines of this room. I see a faint movement a few feet away as pins his ears back and snarls. Hunched down a few feet away is a huge dog, some sort of mastiff. It has a leather collar studded with spikes. But it's not aggressive, it's whimpering, as though it's afraid. As repulsive as this whispering is to my ears, it must be a lot worse for the dog. I'm not sure why doesn't seem to be afflicted. But then again, I'm not sure is really a dog or if is really real. I slowly approached the mastiff and offered a small morsel from my rations. A hunk of rat meat. Perhaps if I can get it out of here, I could use my other scroll to speak to it. It doesn't resist as I help it stand up on all fours. It doesn't resist as I guide it to put its front paws up on the side of the chasm wall. And then pushing up from behind, I help it scramble up and into the room. I turn to pick up whose displeasure is very apparent on its face. I'm not replacing you. He's big and strong, and he might be of use. Remains indignant, but he lets me pick him up and put it next to the mastiff. Then I haul myself up. As I retrieve my knife and my torch, I notice a small vial on the floor. It appears to be more of the red poison, so I put it in my pocket with the other one. And here's a good place to wrap up. We'll pick up next time with a little more of what's in the next room. Hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you come back for the next one. And wherever you're out there, take care of yourself. Try to make someone happy today. Thanks for listening to the Arcane Alienist podcast. The music you're hearing is Come and Get It by Scott Holmes Music. The cover art is by Dave Bone. Be sure to check out his stuff at ironseer.com. You can leave me a message. I have my SpeakPipe account linked to the show description. You can also send me an email at arcane.alienist@gmail.com. Just embed a voice memo, or I'll just read the text to your email during a future episode. Once again, thanks so much for listening.